Good morning everyone, welcome to yet another session of weekly roundup. In this session, we will cover important development of the last week. Before we start today's session, let's see the important headlines which we will cover in this session. In this session, we will cover 5 main news, 7 quick updates and 1 personality in news. In main news, first main news is about passive euthanasia, as Supreme Court applies passive euthanasia framework for the first time in India. Second main news is about Essential Commodities Act, as Center invoked it to regulate the natural gas supply. Then third main news is about new bodies proposed to curb the delays in the environmental clearances. And fourth main news is about Fiscal Health Index 2026, as it is released by the NITI Aayog. And last main news is about participation of women in judiciary. In personality in news, we will cover Savitribai Phule. So without wasting any time, let's dive into first main news of the day. The first main news of the day is about passive euthanasia, as Supreme Court applied this framework for the first time in India, and it is very important for you for GS paper 2, that is important aspect of governance, and GS paper 4, that is ethics related to human life, right? So this is the background. Now we will see what is the case. The case for the passive euthanasia by the Supreme Court is the Harish Rana versus Union of India. And please remember that when you write answer, try to write important milestone cases in your answer to substantiate your points and to enrich your example and answers, right? That is very important to get good marks. So here the case is Harish Rana versus Union of India judgment, where Supreme Court have permitted the withdrawal of artificial life support of a man who has been in a vegetative state for more than 12 years on the basis of best interest of the patient principle. Please remember, also write such keywords and principles in your answer, particularly in the polity paper, right? So this is in the best interest of the patient principle, right? And Supreme Court also waived the usual 30-day consideration period, as the patient parents and the both medical boards unanimously agreed to the recovery was impossible, right? Now we'll see what are these medical boards in the further discussion, and what is this 30-day period. Before that, let's see what was this case was. So this person Harish Rana was in the college, and he fell from the 4th floor in the college, and from that time, from the 2014, he is in coma, and there is no possibility of his recovery. So that is why Supreme Court have allowed him to administer the passive euthanasia. So we'll see what is the passive euthanasia is all about, right? So this is the brief background. Now we'll see what is the euthanasia and what are its various types. So what is the euthanasia? So euthanasia refers to the hastening of the patient death to relieve the suffering, right? So some patients are there who don't have any hope of the recovery, and they will be in the permanent suffering till their death. In that cases, euthanasia is administered. What is the euthanasia? So it is the Greek word, and eu here means the good, and thanatos means the death, right? So in Greek, EU means good and thanatos means death, and that is why euthanasia means the good death or the mercy killing, right? Or the mercy killing. Please remember this fact. So it is the mercy killing where the recovery of the patient is not possible, or the chances are very minuscule in comparison to the suffering he is going through. That is the euthanasia. Euthanasia have the two broad categories, that is active euthanasia and passive euthanasia, right? What is the active euthanasia? So active euthanasia refers to the physician's deliberate act, usually administration of the lethal drugs, to end the incurably or terminally ill patient's life. So here the doctor actually administer the medicine or the drug which will be fatal to his life, and then his life will be gone, right? It is not legalized in India, but it is legalized in countries like the Netherlands, Belgium, and other countries. Like in India, it is illegal, right? What is the framework? As per the BNS 2023, section 100 and section 101. So this is the homicide and this is for the murder. So in India, active euthanasia is not allowed, it is illegal, and this Harish Rana judgment also emphasizes on that point, right? In passive euthanasia, however, patient is allowed to die naturally by withholding or withdrawing the medical treatment that sustains the life. What is the withholding or medical treatment? Such as artificial oxygen or the food and water. So it is administered artificially and patient is not reacting to it. So these systems can be withdrawn and patient is allowed to die naturally. So this is the difference between the active euthanasia and the passive euthanasia and their legal framework here. In the case of passive euthanasia, we will see what is the legal framework for the passive euthanasia in the India in the upcoming slide, right? So what is the legal status of the passive euthanasia in India, right? So firstly, Law Commission report in its 196th report and 241 report recommended the legalization of the passive euthanasia for terminally ill patients, right? That is the one fact. Please remember these things. Then there is Aruna Ramchandra Shanbag case, that is from the 2011, and in this case Supreme Court rejected the plea for the euthanasia of the Aruna Shanbag, but allowed the passive euthanasia under the strict condition for the terminal and the irreversible patients, right? So this Aruna Shanbag was the nurse in Mumbai, and she was physically assaulted by a person, and then she went in a coma. The person who assaulted her actually completed his sentence and got free, but Aruna was there in coma for more than 40 years. And imagine the pain and suffering she went through. But Supreme Court didn't allow her, and in 2015 she died a natural death. So this is about the Aruna Ramchandra Shanbag case. That is also very important. Then there is another case, that is the Gankor case. Here Supreme Court said that the Article 21 of the Constitution, that is right to life, doesn't have the right to die, right? So Supreme Court in the Gankor case said that Article 21 covers the right to life and it doesn't cover the right to die, right? It is case in the 1996. You can write this case also, right? So very important case here is the common cause judgment of 2018. Here Supreme Court recognized it and held that right to die with dignity is the fundamental right under the Article 21. So Gankor case judgment was reversed in the case of the common cause judgment of 2018. Here Supreme Court actually allowed the passive euthanasia, right? In this case, it laid down the guidelines for the passive euthanasia and recognized the concept of the living will, right? So please remember this fact also. What is the living will? So patient can actually give his or her will about the passive euthanasia, right? The court had held that the passive euthanasia could be carried out using the advanced medical directives, right? So this is very important case, common cause judgment of 2018, and these guidelines were modified and issued by the Supreme Court in 2023. A primary and the secondary medical board will have to be formed for the expert opinion, right? So in these guidelines, it said that there are the three considerations. The first is that living will. Then there will be a medical board. And then there will be strict supervision of high courts, right? So this is the guidelines. If patient himself or herself gives the consent for the passive euthanasia, and if the patient is not able to give the consent, his immediate relatives such as parents can give that consent to reduce the suffering of the patient. So that is the one thing. Then there is condition of the medical board. So there will be two medical board, primary medical board and secondary medical board, and those will give permission. And thirdly, there will be strict supervision of the high court. So this condition will not be miscalculated or not used for the adverse interest of the patient. So these are the things and the legal status of the passive and active euthanasia in India, right? So these are the some of the facts. Now we will see other important aspect, that the other key highlights of the judgment. What are the other key highlights of the judgment? So judgment say that the government should enact the comprehensive law, and that law should have the framework governing the end of life care and passive euthanasia, right? So this is the one of the judgment, but there should be larger framework and parliament should have the law regarding it. Then it is saying about the administrative direction to improve the process for the future cases. Court directed the high court to ensure the judicial magistrates are informed by the hospitals whenever medical boards decide to withdraw the or withhold the life support. So it should not be misused. Then there is the case of the recognition of clinically assisted nutrition and hydration, CANH. So as a medical treatment. So CANH is considered as the medical treatment, and it is very important for the passive euthanasia because withdrawing such medical treatment will not amount to the death or the murder, right? So that is why it is considered as the medical treatment, and medical treatment can be withdrawn, right? Life support system cannot be withdrawn, but medical treatment cannot be withdrawn, and that is why clinically assisted nutrition and hydration is now considered as the medical treatment, right? Then it is talking about bridging the gap for the home care patient, and it is saying that even in the case of home care patients, the passive euthanasia can be applied. And it is talking about expediting the secondary medical boards. So it is saying that there should be a secondary medical board, and chief medical officers should provide one within the 48 hours of the request, right? So this is the thing regarding the ethical framework. So there are debate regarding the right to life versus suffering and right to choice. So this is the debate, ethical debate, and various experts actually argue for it and against it, right? So James Richel says that even the withdrawal of the medical support amounts to the death, and that is why it is not ethical, right? So that is the argument of the James Richels, right? And then there is expert called as Simon Blackburn, and he is talking about the act and omission principle. And what is he saying? So he is saying that the act and the omission principle. So he is saying that the act of giving the medicine as the active euthanasia, and the omission, which means that there is withdrawing of the life support, which are the different thing, and that is why they have the different ethical consideration, right? However, there are also experts who are in the favor of active euthanasia, because they say because of the active euthanasia the person get the death very early and their suffering is reduced. In the case of passive euthanasia, when you withdraw their life support, there will be more suffering to the patient. So that is one of the aspect. And then there is obviously a morality, that you cannot take life even when you know that after withdrawing the support the person is going to die. So this is the ethical consideration regarding the euthanasia, right? So I hope it is clear to you. Now we will see various question regarding it. So UPSC have asked the question related to right to privacy and Article 21 in the span of 3 years. So UPSC generally also repeat the question. So what is the question? Right to privacy is protected as the intrinsic part of the right to life and the personal liberty. Which of the following in the Constitution of India correctly and appropriately imply the above statement? So see this statement C, that is the Article 21 and the freedoms guaranteed in the part 3. That is the answer. Same question is asked in the 2021. The right to privacy is protected under which of the article of the Constitution of India? And obviously answer is again C, that is Article 21. So this is all about the first main news of the day. Now we'll see the second main news of the day. Second main news of the day is about Center have invoked the Essential Commodities Act to regulate the natural gas supply. And this topic is very important for GS paper 2, that is government policies and intervention and issues arising out of their design and implementation, right? So without wasting time, let's see the news. So what is the background? So background, as we already know, that government have issued the natural gas supply regulation order 2026, invoking the powers under the Essential Commodities Act of 1955. And why there was need of invoking this order? It was prompted by the ongoing conflict in the West Asia, which has severely disrupted the liquefied natural gas shipment through the Strait of Hormuz. Please remember that Strait of Hormuz is very important and it is in news. The question can be asked about the Strait of Hormuz. What is the natural gas and what is LPG, liquefied petroleum gas? So generally its content is methane, CH4, and in LPG it have the butane, propane, isobutane. So LPG have these gases, LNG and LNG natural gas have the main component, that is the methane. That is the one thing. And second thing is that why Strait of Hormuz is so important for India. So question can be asked, the Strait of Hormuz is an important choke point because the important trading routes and the energy supply goes through the Strait of Hormuz. Almost 20% of the world's energy requirement, that is oil and gas, flows through the Strait of Hormuz. For the India, this is more important. Why? Because around 80 to 85% of the LPG and crude oil of India actually comes from the Strait of Hormuz. That is the one of the aspect. That is why it becomes very important. Overall, we have the 30% of the gas which is supplied from the Strait of Hormuz route. That is the one aspect. Secondly, around 33 crore household actually uses the gas as the fuel. That is the second aspect, right? And that is why it becomes very important for India to have the free access from the Strait of Hormuz, right? Then there is almost 50% of the LNG which flows to India from the Strait of Hormuz, right? This is the one aspect. Then secondly, it is very important for the transshipment. What is this transshipment? So when ships are going for the long distance, they actually dock in intermediate ports, and that is the transshipment zone. And for India, Jebel Ali port in UAE, right? So such kind of port are the transshipment hub for the Indian goods, and it may affect the India's exports, right? That is also one thing. Then also various important initiatives such as India Middle East Economic Corridor, which also can be impacted. Then International North-South Transport Corridor, which can be also impacted. Also, India have the infrastructure project such as Chabahar, which can be also impacted due to the instability in the West Asia and because of the problems going in the Strait of Hormuz. And that is why particularly India is very keen and is concerned about the various issues which are going in the Strait of Hormuz. So this is the brief background. Also, there is one thing that even the diversification of the natural gas from the USA and also other countries such as Norway is not very effective right now, because the time is very lengthy, almost 2 months, and it also increases the prices of the gas. And that is why Strait of Hormuz is very important for India's energy security, right? So this is the background of the news. Now we will see what are the key provisions of the order. And the first key provision is that 4-tier priority allocation framework, right? To manage the limited supply, the allocation framework is based on the consumer's average gas usage over the past 6 months. And we will see what is this 4-tier priority allocation framework. So there is 100% priority sector 1 allocation, and it covers the domestic PNG, CNG transport and LPG supply, production and pipeline fuel, right? There will be 70% priority sector allocation to the fertilizer plants and strictly for the fertilizer production, right? Then there is 80% priority sector 3 allocation to the tea industries, manufacturing, industrial, consumers, right? And there is 80% priority sector 4 allocation to the industrial and commercial consumers via CGD, right? So this is the one factor. Then there is another provision, that is the gas redistribution. So what it is saying, that gas supplies will be partially or entirely curtailed for the non-priority industries, including the power plants and petrochemical facilities, right? That is very important because it will impact the India's manufacturing capacity, right? Then there is gas pooling mechanism. What is the gas pooling mechanism? So gas is diverted from non-priority to priority sectors, will be sold at the newly determined pool price, right? Because the prices are different, so there will be a newly determined price. So these are the key provisions of the order. Now we will see the other measures taken to reduce the problems for the consumer. The first thing is that the 25-day inter booking period to avoid the hoarding or the black marketing of the LPG gas. So there will be 25-day inter booking period. So you have to wait for 25 days to book another cylinder. That is the one thing. Then there is another thing, that is imported LPG will be prioritized to the essential non-domestic sectors. And which are those essential non-domestic sectors? Such as hospitals and educational institutions, right? And then there is high level committee which is formed or constituted to review the supply to the other non-domestic sectors, such as hospitality sector, such as hotels and other sectors. So these are the some of the measures taken to reduce the suffering because of the lack of availability of the natural gas. Now we will see about the Essential Commodities Act 1955. What was the objective? So it allows the government to regulate the production, supply and the prices of the essential goods to prevent the hoarding, black marketing and the shortages. Please remember that, regulate the production, supply and prices, and to prevent the hoarding, black marketing and shortages. Please remember these 6 things. Then there is section 3, and what it is saying? So it empowers the central government to regulate the supply and the distribution of the petroleum and the petroleum products and related trade for the securing the equitable distribution. So there is section 5 also. So central government can give this power to the state governments under the section 5. And then there was order of 2020, and by this order it is saying that the essential commodities or these commodities such as pulses or the food grains, the Essential Commodities Act will only be applied in the extreme cases such as war, calamities or price rise, right? So there will be only limited application to the such commodities. So this is about the Essential Commodities Act and various important aspect regarding it. Now we will see the previous year question regarding it. What is the question? So it is from the 2019. Petroleum and Natural Gas Regulatory Board is the first regulatory board set up by the government of India. So it is not the first, it was set up in 2006, and the first board was TRAI, Telecom Regulatory Authority of India, and it is not Petroleum and Natural Gas Regulatory Board. So this statement is wrong. One of the tasks of PNGRB is to ensure the competitive markets for the gas. Obviously a general statement is true, and appeals against the decision of the PNGRB go before the appellate tribunals for electricity. That is also correct. So what is the answer? Answer is B, that is 2 and 3 are correct only, right? So this is the one thing. Then there are these main question. Access to the affordable, reliable, sustainable and modern energy is the sine qua non, which means essential to achieve the sustainable development goals. Comment on the progress made in India in this regard, right? So we are promoting the renewable energy and also various initiatives such as Kusum and Sauramitra. All these things you can write in this answer. Then see this question. Energy security constitutes the dominant kingpin of the India's foreign policy and linked with the India's overarching influence in the Middle Eastern countries. How would you integrate energy security with the India's foreign policy trajectories in the coming years? So we can write here the diversification of the trade, such as USA with the Russia, then Venezuela, and various other countries. We are actually importing oil and gas from over the 40 countries. So you can write those points and you can write the answer. So this is about the questions. Now we'll see the third main news of the day. So third main news of the day is about the new bodies proposed to curb the delays in the environmental clearances, right? So we'll see which are those new bodies and what was the need of these bodies right now, right? So this is important for the GS paper 1, and that is sustainable development, right? So this is the brief background. Now we'll see what is the development. And what is the development? So Ministry of Environment and Forest have released the draft notification to establish the standing authority on the environmental impact assessment, that is SAEIA, and the standing committee on environmental impact appraisal, that is SCEIA, to fast track the environmental clearances. What was the need? Both bodies will constituted in the accordance with the Environmental Protection Act of 1986, and the need arises from the delayed reconstitution of the state environmental impact assessment authorities, that is SCIAA, right? So this is the development, because state could not constitute these bodies, and that is why development activities were getting impacted. That is why there is the alternative mechanism which is constituted and created by the central government under the Environmental Protection Act of 1986, right? So this is the development. Now we'll see about these bodies, right? So before see that environmental clearance and environmental impact assessment, what is this? Though environmental clearance process is governed by the Environmental Impact Assessment Notification of 2006. So that is the one thing. Then environmental impact assessment is decision making tool that predicts the environmental effects of the proposed projects and evaluates the alternative to identify the option with the best balance of economic, environmental cost and benefits, right? So environmental impact assessment actually see that these new development projects, how they will hamper the environment and to what extent they will hamper the environment, and is there any alternatives available so that the environment impact and the is adverse effect can be minimized. That is called as environmental impact assessment, and it is through the Environmental Protection Act of 1986. That is the one aspect. Then under the environmental impact assessment, there are two categories of the project, that is category A project and category B project, right? A category and B category. And project falling under the A category goes to the Ministry of Environmental and Forest for the clearances, and project which fall under the B category, project falling under the B category goes to the state governments for the clearances. In this also there is subcategory, that is B1 and B2, right? So what is B1 and B2? In B1, state government actually give the approval to this project, and under B2 project there is no need of the approval. So this is about the categories of the project, right? Then we'll see the steps in the environmental impact assessment. The first is the screening. What is the screening? In this stage, the project is seen, what is its scope, scale, area, all these things, finance, all these things are seen where it will be implemented, right? Then there will be scoping, and under the scoping it will be seen that how much area will be impacted, population will be impacted, then there is any alternative or not. All those things are taking into consideration, how much the environmental cost will be there, how much it can be avoided, all these things are seen in the scoping. Then there is public consultation. In this thing, the civil society organization, NGOs, the people living in those areas are actually participate in the discussion and give the suggestion and the alternative. So that is the public consultation. So it is the participatory governance. And then finally there will be appraisal, and then the project will be started. So this is the procedure given in the Environmental Protection Act, and this is the four-stage process for the environmental impact assessment. So this is about it. Now we will see the proposed bodies, right? So what are these bodies? The first body is Standing Authority on the Environmental Impact Assessment, SAEIA. And what are these the function and the powers of this body? So the function and power to discharge the functions of the SEAAA if the SEAAA becomes the non-functional. If state government does not constitute these bodies, then the standing authority will overtake these powers. And if the SEAAA fails to communicate its decision on the clearance within this specified time frame, the proposal is automatically forwarded to the SAEIA through the Parivesh portal. Please remember that Parivesh portal. We will discuss the Parivesh portal in a while. Then there is Standing Committee on the Environmental Impact Appraisal and the constitution by the central government for the each state and UT. So it will be for the each state and UT. And what will be its function? To discharge the function of the State Expert Appraisal Committee, SCAC, whenever the SCAC is not functional, right? So when state government will not have the bodies and are not functional, then these bodies will overpower and take the charge, right? So there will be no impact on the developmental activities. So this is about these bodies. So government have also taken various initiatives for the environmental impact assessment. First is the Parivesh, as we already discussed. So it is the single window clearance system, right? And then there is Invokes. And what is the Invokes? So it is the environmental information system. So it is also important for the environmental impact assessment, right? And then there is order of 2020 regarding the environmental impact assessment. So these are the some of the initiative taken by the government. So this is all about this news. Now we'll see the previous year question regarding it. So what are the questions? The first question is that environmental impact assessment is aimed to help the, and there are four options. What is the aim of the environmental impact assessment? Estimate the future needs of the society, not true. Smooth implementation of the project. Then cope with the rapid increase in the population, not true. And resource conservation. So the answer is resource conservation, and answer is 4. Then there is what role do environmental NGOs and the activists play in influencing the environmental impact assessment outcomes for the major projects in India? Cite 4 examples with the important details, right? So they actually give attention of the other peoples. There will be more awareness of the projects. Then there will be more keenness of the government, and there will be more transparent system. What are the examples? Such as Niyamgiri Hills. Then there is POSCO plant, right? Then there are Narmada Bachao Andolan, right? So these can be examples related to it. You can write these examples. Then there is how does the draft environmental impact assessment notification of 2020 differs from the existing environmental notification of 2006. Firstly, the public consultation window have been reduced from 30 days to 20 days. That is the one thing. Then there is oversight that have been reduced. Then there can be a post project approval, right? So this is also one thing. And then there was inspection, biannual inspection, that is reduced, so or minimize. So these are the some of the changes made in the environmental impact assessment notification of 2006 and environmental impact assessment of 2020, right? So this is all about this news. Now we'll see the next main news of the day. So next main news is about the fiscal health index of 2026, and it is released by the NITI Aayog. It becomes very important because UPSC have directly asked the question regarding the fiscal health and its importance, right? And it becomes very important for the GS paper 3, that is the government budgeting. So without wasting time, let's see the development. Fiscal health index becomes very significant as state accounts for nearly 1/3 of the India general government debt and plays a key role in delivering the key public services. That is the one aspect. Secondly, public debt of India is increasing. It is around 82% of the GDP, which is very high, and the high debt, which means that the government capacity to raise the funds for the development is decreasing. That is the one aspect, right? Then fiscal deficit of the state is increasing, right? So what is the data regarding the fiscal deficit? So fiscal deficit of the state was around 2.6% in 2022, and it have increased to 3.2% in 2025. That is the another aspect, right? Then there is one of the problem, that is the debt to state GDP ratio, and this ratio have increased from 16% in 2013-14, and it have increased to 23% in 2025, which means the state are increasingly taking loans for their budget, right? So these are the some of the things. However, if states are taking these loans, it is okay, but how state are actually utilizing these loans, so it is the problematic. Around 62% of the total budget actually goes for the pension, salaries, interest payments and subsidies by the state. That is the huge amount. Then 8% actually goes for the direct cash transfers, right? So this amount is not utilized for any infrastructure project. So only some amount is there for the capital formation. That is the one thing, right? So developmental activities are actually getting hampered, right? This is the one thing. Also, Finance Commission report, 16th Finance Commission report is saying around 20% of the subsidies are actually in the form of direct cash transfer, and it is not generating any developmental activity. That is very problematic. Also, Fiscal 16th Finance Commission is saying that the central fiscal deficit should be around 3.5% by the 2030, right? So these are the some of the problems and the issues. We have also given some of the suggestion given by the 16th Finance Commission. So this is the brief background. Now we'll see the Fiscal Health Index 2026. So firstly, there are 5 key pillars. And what are those 5 key pillars? Quality of expenditure, then revenue mobilization, then fiscal prudence, then debt index, and finally debt sustainability, right? Then the categorizing major state into categories, namely achiever, front runner, performer, and aspirational state. So there is a index and score. If the state is more than 50%, that is the achiever, right? So if it is scoring more than 50%, then it is the achiever. Then it is between 40 to 50%, then it is the front runner. Then If it is between the 25 to 40%, it is the performance, and if it is the 25 or less, then it is the aspirational state, right? So this is the one of the thing, and it uses the data of the CAG for the index formation, right? This is the another thing. Then there is sub indicators. So refine for the north state to capture the unique characteristic like the different terrain, difficult terrain, sparse population density, limited own revenue capacity, etc., right? And what is the difference of this index and the previous index? So previously there were no inclusion of the 10 Himalayan and the northeastern state. This time the 10 states are included. Secondly, there is different criteria for the 10 Himalayan states and the northeastern states, right? And we have also seen there is a sub indicators for the these states. So this is the difference between the previous index and the this index, right? So this is about the index. Now we will see the key highlights of the fiscal health index 2026. So who are the top rankers? Odisha was the top ranker previously, and this time also Odisha remains the top performer under the achiever category. Then there are also states such as Goa and Jharkhand also featuring the achiever category, right? Then these exhibit the high own tax share, large capital outlay around the 4 to 5% of the year's GSDP, and low fiscal deficit below the 3% of the GSDP. Then moderate debt level, etc., right? And who are the bottom performers? So Punjab, West Bengal and Kerala, right? Then please see the inclusion of the northeastern state and the Himalayan state as we already discussed. Then in those, top rankers or achievers are the Arunachal Pradesh, rank highest, and the Uttarakhand, and bottom rankers are the Himachal Pradesh and Manipur, right? And policy priorities for improving the state fiscal health are enhancing the revenue mobilization, then strengthening the own tax capacity, then improving the capital expenditure, and strengthen the public financial management system, monitoring of budget, borrowing, etc. So these are the key highlights of the fiscal health index 2026. Now we'll see the previous year question. What is the previous year question? The first statement is that the Fiscal Responsibility and Budget Management Act Review Committee report has recommended the debt to GDP ratio of 60% for the general government by 2023, comprising 40% for the central government and 20% for the state government. This statement is correct. Then central government has domestic liabilities of 21% of the GDP as compared to that of the 49% of the GDP of the state governments. Obviously central government will have the higher, and this is statement is wrong. This is true in the reverse to some modification in the figures, right? Then there see this statement, as per the Constitution of India, it is mandatory for the state to take the central government's consent for raising any loan if the government farmer owns any outstanding liabilities to the latter. It is true, and the article is Article 293, right? So what are the correct option? That is the correct option is C, that is 1 and 3 only. So this is about the question which was asked related to it. Then see this question also, which of the following likely to be the most inflationary in its effect? So these are the applied questions, and the answer is that the creation of the new money to finance the budget deficit. Here it is talking about the creation of new money without anything. So it is like the printing new money to finance the budget deficit, and it is not correct practice, right? So the answer is D. Then explain how the fiscal health index can be used as the tool for the assessing the fiscal performance of the states in India. In what way would it encourage the state to adopt the prudent and sustainable fiscal policies, as we already discussed in the article, right? Then fiscal expenditure management is a challenge to the government of India in the context of budget making during the post liberalization period. Clarify it. So we have already discussed what are the problems and what are the solution in the first slides of the discussion. So you can use those points to substantiate your answer. This is all about this news. Now we'll see the next news of the day. Next news of the day is about the greater participation of women in judiciary is key to the credibility of the judiciary, as stated by the Chief Justice of India, and it becomes very important for GS paper 2, that is appointments to the various constitutional posts, right? So without wasting any time, let's see what is the development. As we already discussed, see, so CJ have stated it, and he stated is addressing the first National Conference of Indian Women in Law. CJI emphasized the need of greater women participation in judiciary, right? However, when you are writing answer of such questions, you can give some of the theories which have been very important for these cases, such as Carol Portman's theory of the public-private divide, and what it says, it aptly explains how traditionally male-dominated institutions fail to adapt to the inclusion of the woman. So when you are writing the answer, please give such names of the theories to have the better edge over the other candidates, right? So please remember this name, Carol Portman's theory. Now we'll see the current status of the woman in judiciary in India, and it is not very encouraging. What is the status? In Supreme Court, there is only one woman judge out of 33, right? That is the one thing. Then in high courts, there are only 14.85%, around 15% of the judges are women, and in district courts, it is around 37% women judges. And please remember that in the women advocates or the lawyers, the number is very less, around 20%, right? So this is the background and the current status of the judges in the India. Now we'll see the various reasons for the low representation. What is the reasons? The first reason is seniority cum merit criteria. So obviously it is favoring the long tenure traditionally dominated by the men, because female take breaks in between for various maternal purposes and other things, and then there will be having the less seniority and the male will have the larger seniority. So that is the one aspect. Then there are structural barriers due to the male dominator collegium appointment system. There is limited representation in the senior position in the bar. So please remember that many times what happens, bar actually recommends the name of the judges, and many times these bar are actually dominated by the males. Also the collegiums are also dominated by the males, and that is how the representation of women remains the less. So this is the one fact, only 11 Supreme Court judges till date, and this is very less, around 3% from the independence, right? Then there is workplace issues. So women face gender bias, poor infrastructure, etc., hindering the professional growth. So there was one report, and even the basic infrastructure in the courts was absent, around 20% courtrooms, right? So this is the one fact. Then there is leaky pipeline, which the leaky pipelines means that women enter judiciary but fewer reach the higher courts despite qualification, because of the they leave practice or they will have the discrimination on all those things, right? So these are the some of the reasons for the lesser participation of women in the judiciary. Now we'll see the importance of the woman in the judiciary. And what is the importance? Firstly, ensuring the gender equality, right? So it will ensure the gender equality. Then there will be gender sensitive justice. Woman give the different perspective than the male, and it will have the gender sensitive justice, right? So in case of rape or other issues, a woman will see that with the different aspect of the empathy which male cannot understand, right? That is the one thing. Then public trust and the legitimacy. So larger woman participation will ensure the public trust and the legitimacy of the women's generally, and then role models, right? So they will encourage more women to enter the legal profession and the judiciary. So these are the some of the importance of the woman in judiciary. Now we'll see the reform measures. So the firstly, transparent and inclusive judicial appointment system with focus on the gender diversity. Then there is reservation targets for the women in the judicial services and legal institution. In this case, we can write about the Kerala model. They have 50% reservation in the lower judiciary, right? Please write such answer and examples, right? Then there is mentorship and the leadership programs for the women lawyers and judges. Then there is improved workspace infrastructure and the safe code environment, and encouraging women in litigation and the senior bar roles to strengthen the promotion pipeline, right? In this case, you can also give the examples such as UK and Canada. They have the quotas for the women's, and then there is Jordan, which have the 15% reservation or the quotas for the female judges. So India can also learn from the such best practices from the world. So this is all about the women in the judiciary. Now we'll see the question related to it. So first question is that discuss the desirability of the greater representation to women in the higher judiciary to ensure the diversity, equity, and the inclusiveness. Haven't we discussed what is the importance? So you have to write those points with the examples to substantiate your point, as we already discussed, right? Then there is discuss the contribution of civil society groups for the women's effective and meaningful participation and representation in the state legislature in India. So this is not directly about the judiciary, but the same question can be asked for the judiciary, right? So you can write what is the contribution and role of the civil society groups for the women effective and meaningful participation and representation in the judiciary, right? So they can aware the people, they can have the skill mechanisms, and they can also promote the equality through the pressure groups. So you can write those kind of answer. This is all about the main news of the day. Now we'll see the personality in news. So personality in news for this week is Savitribai Phule. What is the development? It is her death anniversary and Home Minister paid tribute to her, right? So this is the development. Now we'll see about the Savitribai Phule. So she was born in Satara district in Naigaon, right, in Maharashtra, and she was the first headmistress to the country's first school for the girls in Pune. Please remember and see the importance. It was around 200 years ago. She was understanding the importance of the girls' education, which is not even possible and not easy even the today's date. So see how visionary these people were, right? And there are other contribution of hers also. Those are for the women right. So she started the Mahila Seva Mandal for the women's right and Bal Hatya Pratibandhak Gruha for the refuge to the women. So what is the Bal Hatya Pratibandhak Gruha? So there were women or widows who used to get pregnant because of the harassment by the relatives or by the other people, because they were very helpless and they were taken advantage of, and when they became pregnant, they generally was killed or by left alone by the society. And then Savitribai actually avoided those deaths of mother and the newborn, and she started the Bal Hatya Pratibandhak Griha, which means the home for their livelihood. That is the important aspect. Then she established the educational trust called the Native Female School in Pune. That is also important, and promoted the Satya Shodhak marriage. What is the Satya Shodhak marriage? In these marriages, the Brahmins or the priest are absent, and progressive activities such as planting of the trees, giving books, and the other social activities such as promoting the education of the girls, those kind of things are happen, right? Then for the social inclusion, education among the communities like Mahars and monks etc. was promoted by he. So these were the lower caste communities, and she promoted the social inclusion. Then she also published the various books and authored the various books such as Kavya Phule and the Bavan Kashi Subodh Ratnagar. Kavya Phule means the flower of the poetry, right? And then she died in 1897 while nursing the patient during the plague endemic, right? So this is about the Savitribai Phule. Now we will see the quick updates of the day. So first quick update of the day is the Gulf Cooperation Council GCC. What is the development? India have backed Bahrain draft submitted on the behalf of GCC condemning the Iran's missile and the drone attack to the UNSC, right? So this is the development, and now we'll see about the GCC. So its headquarter is in Riyadh, that is in Saudi Arabia. And what was its genesis? So it was established on 25th May 1981 through a cooperative agreement among the 6 Gulf countries, right? Which are those 6 members? So Oman, UAE, Qatar, Bahrain, Kuwait, and Saudi Arabia. So these are the 6 countries. And what is the objective? To promote the coordination, integration, and the cooperation among these countries, right? And institutional structure. So it have the Supreme Council, higher authority, and oversees the Dispute Settlement Commission. So this is about the GCC. Now we'll see the next quick update of the day. Next quick update of the day is about the Kimberley process. And what is the development? So India have talked about and emphasized about the diamond governance in the world. So this is the development, and the now we'll see what is the Kimberley process. So what is the genesis? The Kimberley process certification scheme was launched in 2003, and it is tripartite initiative involving the governments, international diamond industry, and the civil society, right? As we already discussed, it is related to diamond governance and its trade, right? So it is aiming at preventing the trade in the conflict diamonds, right? And what is the conflict diamonds? So conflict diamonds refers to the rough diamonds used by the rebel groups or their allies to finance the conflict that undermine the legitimate governments. So these rebel groups uses the diamond and trade them, and by that money they actually finance the coup or their fights. So Kimberley process actually try to avoid it, right? And what is the mechanism? It mandates that all the international shipments of the rough diamond carry the tamper resistant KP certificate, KPCS, and allow trade only among the certified member countries to avoid the conflict diamonds, right? So this is about the second quick update of the day. Now we'll see the third quick update of the day. And third quick update of the day is about National Shipping Board, NSB. And what is the development? So government held the high level interaction with the National Shipping Board to address the emerging challenges in India's shipping industry, right? Because of the West Asia crisis and other issues. And now we'll see about the National Shipping Board. So it is the permanent statutory body. So statutory means the which is by the law established in the 1959 under the section 4 of the Merchant Shipping Act of 1958, right? And which is the ministry under which it works? So Ministry of Port, Shipping and Waterways. And what is the objective of the National Shipping Board? So advises the government on matters related to shipping, including the development and evolution of India's maritime policy, right? And what is its composition? So it have the chairman and the other members. So 6 members elected by the parliament, 4 from the Lok Sabha and 2 from the Rajya Sabha. And then such number of other members not exceeding the 16 as the central government thinks fit. So this is about the composition and structure of the National Shipping Board. Now we'll see the next quick update. Next quick update is Darknet. And what is the development? So NCB has busted the pan-India Darknet drug network called Team Kalki. And what is the Darknet? So the internet depends on the 3 types of web, that is the surface web, deep web and dark web. So surface web is the part that we can access through the normal browser. So we generally search, that is the surface net, right? And what is the deep web and the dark web? Are not accessible through the search engines like Google. So it operates on overlay networks requiring the specific software or the configurations to access. For example, Tor, the Onion router, right? And only 10% of the internet is the surface web, while the remaining 90% of is the constitute the deep web and the dark web. And deep web is web such as our transcription, password and all those things, which can be a deep web. And dark web is generally part of the deep web, which is used by the criminal activities and the other concealed activities by the various people and even the governments also, right? So this is about the darknet and deep web. Now we'll see the next quick update of the day, and that is the removal of the speaker, right? What is the development? So development of the Lok Sabha take up the resolution seeking the removal of speaker, and it was also rejected by the Lok Sabha that day, right? So now we will see the removal of the speaker. What is the constitutional provisions? So Article 94 talks about the vacation, resignation and the removal of the speaker and the deputy speaker. Article 94C talks about the speaker and deputy speaker can be removed by the resolution passed by the majority of the all the then members of the Lok Sabha, right? All the then members of the Lok Sabha and not the simple majority, right? There is a difference. I have already covered the removal of Lok Sabha speaker in detail in the main news previously in the weekly roundup. Please go and see that, so you will have the idea of it. And I have also discussed about the appointment and the removal of the various constitutional machineries such as president, vice president and other constitutional provisions, right? So please go and visit that video. Then what is the procedure? So firstly, notice is given, written notice to the Secretary General of the Lok Sabha supported by at least 50 members of the Lok Sabha. Then there is minimum 14 days notice is required before the resolution can be moved, and then there will be discussion stage, and speaker cannot preside but can participate and vote in the first instance. No casting vote. If there is a tie, speaker cannot vote, but he can vote in the first instance. So this is all about the removal of the speaker. Now we'll see the next quick update of the day. Next quick update of the day is of the Kurumba painting. And what is the development? The Kurumba art tradition faces the threat of extinction. Only 10 artists are there, right? So what is the Kurumba painting? So it is the 3000-year-old tribal folk painting of the Kurumba tribe found in the Tamil Nadu, Kerala and Karnataka. And the Kurumba tribe is classified as the particularly vulnerable tribal group PVTG. And the question have been asked about the PVTG. So please go and see that question And what is the theme of this painting? So they depict rituals, spiritual beliefs, festivals, nature, animals, and the community life, right? Then what are the materials used? So uses natural pigments from the forest sources such as tree resin and the crushed leaves, right? So tree resin give the strength, and leaves can be used to have the color such as green color, right? And their style is characterized by the simple linear motifs, dots, lines, and the geometric patterns. Please search, it is very beautiful, right? Then there is cultural role also, traditionally painted on the walls and the temples, and preserving the tribal tradition and the visual storytelling, such as there is also one such as Worli painting in the Maharashtra, right, by the uh, tribal groups in the Maharashtra. So this is the quick update. Now we'll see the next quick update, and that is the exercise Limitiye 2026. So Indian Armed Forces contingent arrive in the Seychelles for the exercise Limitiye. So what is the exercise Limitiye? So it is the biennial joint military exercise. So it is the biennial 2 years. In 2 years, it is hold once. Exercise conducted between the India and Seychelles, and the 2026 edition is the first tri-service participation from the India. Right. So both three services, Indian Army, Air Force, and Navy, will participate. And we last time actually discussed the exercise Vajra Prahar, and who participate in Vajra Prahar? So it is the military cooperation between India and the United States, right? So this is all for the day. To read more about the current affairs, you can visit our digital current affairs portal, where you can solve various quizzes, read current affair material such as monthly current affair document, and even the PT 365 and other important documents for your example. This is all for the day. Keep learning. Happy day.